I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Omni viewer, and while I do have some Jurassic Park / Jurassic World videos in the works that are scripted and better edited and what have you, I think I'm going to start off my next set of Jurassic videos in a more off-the-cuff, unscripted way. This is a subject I've wanted to talk about for a little bit, but I was saving it for whenever Dominion was going to release, and I figure with the trailers out and people discussing them, now's the time to do it. I'm also sort of building off of the previous video about whether or not dinosaurs should be portrayed as scientifically accurate in film. If you haven't seen that video, or you need a refresher of what I said in there, follow the links. That'll get you up to speed on my philosophy. Short answer is, I don't necessarily think that scientific accuracy is that vital for dinosaurs when you're dealing with a work of fiction. Because, to be honest, the science of dinosaurs is constantly changing. That which was accepted yesterday could be an outdated theory tomorrow. But the way I see it, while the science of dinosaurs may change from day to day, fictional dinosaurs are forever. And often they become very iconic creatures, parts of our lives, things that we instantly recognize. And I feel the same thing applies to Jurassic Park. Now, Jurassic Park is certainly a series that's got a bit more of a reputation for paying attention to paleontology. I mean, the first movie brought on paleontologists to act as consultants for the dinosaurs, so they could get more in tune and understand how those dinosaurs actually would have been. And then they took that information and threw most of it out of the window because it was getting in the way of the movie, but silence, we don't talk about that. So, the point is, Jurassic Park was viewed as being the most realistic and the most naturalistic of dinosaur movies. Therefore, ever since we've gotten the Jurassic World series started, yes, it began all the way back then, the argument has been that the Jurassic series needs to get with the times. It needs to start portraying its dinosaurs accurately, like putting feathers on the dinosaurs that had feathers and things like that. Inevitably, we've also seen people speaking about the trailers for Jurassic World Dominion and pointing out things like the Quetzalcoatlus is too big, as is the Mosasaurus. Or we see dinosaurs in the snow when they shouldn't be able to survive in that environment. Now we have a Pyroraptor that's swimming under the ice in freezing cold water, things like that. Now my first thought whenever I see those sort of critiques is to say that we don't necessarily have all the context. It's just a trailer. It's showing us scenes that it believes will really get us interested in seeing the movie. We want to be thinking, oh, I want to understand what that has to do with the plot. So naturally, it would show stuff that would get us wondering. There are Parasaurolophus herds in the snow? Well, for all we know, the movie agrees with everyone who says they shouldn't be there. Maybe those cowboys on horseback are riding after that herd because they're trying to round them up and transport them to a warmer environment before they freeze to death. That could be the context. We don't know because that context isn't given. See what I'm saying? And as far as certain dinosaurs being too big or having abilities they maybe shouldn't have, it was established at the end of Fallen Kingdom that these dinosaurs were being sold to people who had every intention of using them in ways that did not involve parks, let us say. Some of them were militaristic. It varied. The auction gave different reasons as people were coming in. But it also established in Fallen Kingdom that genetic manipulation was going to be a huge part of the picture going forward. So, you know, you have dinosaurs, if you're breeding them for some sort of military purpose, maybe you would give some growth hormones to your pterosaur to make it bigger than a plane. Or you might tweak your raptor's internal temperature so it can survive in sub-zero temperatures. You don't know. Again, no context. We can't really be saying whether or not any of this really does make sense or not make sense. But that still leaves us with certain things that have been eating away at people from the beginning. Now, as I said, going back to the premiere of Jurassic World, there was an outcry from the more paleontologically minded people among us that Jurassic Park and Jurassic World had to get with the times and start applying real-world science to the dinosaurs. Never mind that there is an in-universe explanation, even one that harkens back all the way to the original book by Michael Crichton that says the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park aren't necessarily pure dinosaurs, but were in fact altered to be more cinematic, basically. But instead, it was stated that there have been new discoveries made, the dinosaurs have to be updated to fit those discoveries. Then again, just because a discovery has been announced doesn't necessarily mean it'll hold up to scrutiny. And there's no better example of that than discoveries made regarding the most iconic of the Jurassic Park dinosaurs, and indeed perhaps the most iconic of all dinosaurs period, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Traditionally, this is what the T-Rex in Jurassic Park looks like. Clearly based on the actual creature, but as you can see, it has a rough, leathery / scaly skin. And this is what a lot of people figured dinosaurs looked like anyway for the longest time. They were reptiles, therefore reptiles have scales. It makes sense. And yes, it was discovered that certain smaller dinosaurs that had more bird-like bone structures actually did have feathers, but T-Rex was still regarded as being a scaly creature. Until a few years ago, when, well, honestly, looking back, it's kind of a ridiculous story when you think about it. It went like this. Paleontologists discovered that members of the Tyrannosaur family, that is, species that are related to Tyrannosaurus rex but are not actually Tyrannosaurus rex, they're smaller creatures, completely different continent, but they discovered those creatures had feathers. Now, this was big news because up until this point there was no evidence that any member of the Tyrannosaur family had feathers. So somebody got it in their heads that, hey, if these smaller members of the family have feathers, maybe the Tyrannosaurus rex had feathers too. And faster than you could say that is one big chicken, this image of the T-Rex spread all over the world. All of a sudden, the new model being pushed was that the Tyrannosaurus rex was a feathered dinosaur. Absolutely covered. That was the initial idea. And a lot of the scientifically minded paleo buffs were saying that the rest of us just had to accept that the T-Rex was a feathered dinosaur. We had to give up our scaly image and get with the times. Don't say it looks like a big chicken because maybe that's just your own interpretation. Maybe you're just resisting what science is telling us, and science is never wrong. T-Rex has feathers now, just accept it. And that was being pushed for a while until people started actually looking at the evidence. I actually did a video on this one too. It turns out that when you look at the fossilized skin impressions of a T-Rex, and we have skin impressions from literally nose to tail of the T-Rex, various parts of the body, only stuff missing is stuff from the back because of how these T-Rexes tended to die. They tended to land on their fronts or their sides, not really on their spines. But we still had all those skin impressions, and none of them had feathers on them. Not a single one, from all different regions of the body. And there was no evidence that they had been stripped or that the feathers had been removed in some way, but maybe by a wound or something. There was no evidence that feathers were ever part of it. Instead, we were seeing scaly skin, just like we had always seen on the T-Rex. And initially that seemed to be quite a blow to the feather theory, but the feather camp didn't want to admit that it was wrong. So instead they said, all right, let's back up a little bit. Maybe it was jumping the gun saying that the T-Rex was completely covered in feathers. Okay, you got us there. But they did still have feathers. Of that we are certain. Their feathers are probably just in those areas that we don't have fossilized impressions of, like on the back. That's where the feathers are, and therefore our theory still holds water. And I would like to point out that is what is called the God in the gaps fallacy, a form of flawed logic in which you basically say that you want to believe something, and if there's any gap in the data that just can't be filled by anything else, you take what you believe and you force it in there and say, aha, that solves it. You can't prove that I am wrong. I maybe can't prove that I'm right, but you can't prove that I'm wrong. Therefore, I must be right. I win. That's basically how it goes. There's a little more nuance to it than that, I realize, but I'm going unscripted here. Now, in any other context, invoking the God in the gaps fallacy would have been called out by these dinosaur buffs, but since it was in support of the feather theory, and the feather theory had to be the correct theory, it wound up being invoked, and not a lot of people seemed all that perturbed by it. So, that became the new model. T-Rex basically with a mohawk, feathers running in a strip from the top of its head to the base of its tail, and that was what we now had to accept. Scaly, but still with feathers, that's the science, gotta accept it, you have no choice, Jurassic World needs to get with the times. Until another discovery was made. I don't recall the exact terminologies here, but it was found that in the brain case for the T-Rex, there was an organ similar to an organ found in species of crocodile, well, the crocodilian family. It's not just in specifically crocodiles, but it's an organ, I believe, that was used for regulating body temperature. And the Dangerville, I believe, did a video on this when the news broke. This is how I know about it, actually. And it was determined that if this was genuine, and that's what the organ really was, and it was in this T-Rex's head, then that was another strike against the feather theory, because theoretically the feathers would have been the thing that regulated the body temperature. They said they were there, certainly not for flight, then there's no way a T-Rex could fly, but the feathers instead would somehow allow heat to escape the body. But if this organ really was what it appeared to be, that wasn't necessary. And really, we were already on thin ice assuming that the feathers were in those places we couldn't actually see to begin with. And the final nail in the coffin came with the revealing of Sue. Sue, of course, is the most complete Tyrannosaurus Rex specimen found to date. There have been plenty of T-Rexes found, but none have been as complete as Sue. And recently, there was a reconstruction done, not of the skeleton, but of what Sue would have looked like in the flesh. If there was muscle and skin on top of those bones, what would Sue look like if she were alive? And here's the result. This is how they reconstructed Sue. And this was touted as the most scientifically accurate reconstruction of a Tyrannosaurus Rex to date, based on all the things we know. You may notice there is not a single feather to be found on this reconstruction. It would appear then that the feather theory is dead, that it was just quietly swept under the rug when everyone else was distracted by, world events, and now the scaly T-Rex has been restored, and we're just going to be whistling a happy tune and pretending that the feather theory never actually existed in the first place. That makes it kind of awkward how the prequel scene in Jurassic World Dominion features a T-Rex with feathers running down its back. That was supposed to be a scientifically accurate depiction of a T-Rex meant to throw the paleo buffs a bone, so to speak, but now it's as outdated as those statues in England. Yeah, that's how quickly the turnover can happen. By the time the movies caught up with the science was already outdated. Or rather, the science realized that it was never correct to begin with, and that the model they had been working with the whole time was actually the correct one. So, yeah, I feel rather vindicated in saying that's all the proof I need that dinosaurs in fiction don't need to be properly scientifically accurate, so long as they are recognizable as dinosaurs. But I'm not done yet, because there's something more that needs to be said regarding Jurassic Park specifically. I mean no offense when I say this, but I can't help but feel that the people who have been demanding that the Jurassic series update the dinosaurs in order to match the new discoveries are kind of missing the point. You see, I'm not going to make the argument here that, you know, Jurassic World was never realistic because you can't hide from a T-Rex by just standing still. That's been done to death. That's not my argument here. My argument, rather, is that we're looking at the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park incorrectly if that's the argument we're going to make, that it needs to be updated. Because you see, the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park are not dinosaurs. They are Jurassic Park dinosaurs. We shouldn't be looking at them the way we would look at a dinosaur in a museum or an issue of Scientific American. We should be looking at them more the way we look at King Kong or Godzilla. What do I mean by that? Well, the thing is, the dinosaurs were specifically designed to be Jurassic Park dinosaurs. Some of them, it's more obvious than others, but the thing is, Jurassic Park ingrained itself so much into our public consciousness that there are certain things we immediately associate with Jurassic Park. Look at the Dilophosaurus. Ever since 1993, there have been all sorts of different games and toy lines and rip-off movies and whatnot where Dilophosauruses have shown up that are smaller, spit venom, and have those big neck frills. We look at those and we immediately think, oh, they stole that from Jurassic Park, because that's where it originated. That is the Dilophosaurus of Jurassic Park. In real life, as far as we know, Dilophosaurus didn't have the frill, and it didn't spit venom. Maybe it did, we don't necessarily know. Venom sacs don't tend to get fossilized, but as far as we can tell, that's not the case. Also, Dilophosauruses were much bigger than what we see in the movies. But still, that was something original to Jurassic Park and which has been ripped off and imitated ever since, and we always associate that with Jurassic Park. But actually, the better point I can make is for a dinosaur who only recently appeared in this series, the Baryonyx. For the full context, this is what a Baryonyx looks like as far as we know in real life. It had sort of a crocodilian cranium, of that we can be certain, but its defining feature, and in fact the feature from which it derives its name, is on its forelimbs. Its arms are proportionally large compared to other theropod dinosaurs, and on the hands there were these huge sickle-shaped claws. Really deadly things. Basically, the Baryonyx's hands are a velociraptor's feet. And that is the defining feature of what makes the Baryonyx look so unique amongst dinosaurs. However, when the Baryonyx appears in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, it looks like this. Still has the crocodilian head, and technically still has those deadly claws on its hands, but the arms are now proportionally tiny compared to the rest of it. It looks more like what you'd expect a theropod dinosaur to look. And I've spoken to people who were disappointed by that. They think this is a terrible design, it completely missed the point of the creature, and it was a bad choice overall. However, it's possible that the Baryonyx looks like that because that's just how the Baryonyx looks in Jurassic Park. Now, I realize that might sound weird. Some of you might hear that and say, wait a minute, I thought the Baryonyx didn't even appear in a movie until Fallen Kingdom. You're telling me that I'm supposed to believe that's just how it looks because you say so? No, I'm not saying that's how it looks just because I say so. I'm saying it because the Baryonyx has technically appeared in the Jurassic Park franchise before. Not in any of the movies, but in the toy line. The toy line was infamous for having way more dinosaurs than there are in the movies. Like, way, way more for each of the movies, with the possible exception of Jurassic Park 3, because I remember the merchandise for that one being surprisingly slim, but even then, they had more dinosaur species than actually is in that film. Though oddly, not some of the dinosaurs that did appear in the film. Anyway, that's getting off topic. The baryonyx was part of the Jurassic Park timeline going all the way back to that original movie. And this is what that original action figure looked like. You may notice it's got the smaller arms. It's not a direct match for the one that eventually appeared in the movie, I realize. But you can see how they might have drawn some inspiration from it. This is a Jurassic Park baryonyx. And that is a specific identification. It is a Jurassic Park baryonyx. Not a generic baryonyx, not a King Kong of Skull Island baryonyx, nothing like that. This is the baryonyx of Jurassic Park. You see, the dinosaur figures of Jurassic Park were a big part of what made Jurassic Park stick in our minds. There's a whole history you can do, and others have indeed done, about the Jurassic Park merchandise and how originally there was skepticism because dinosaur toys are a dime a dozen, and there were specific ways found of how to make their line specifically stand out. And one of those ways, of course, was by designing the dinosaurs a specific way. Now, I'm not saying that in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the people designing the dinosaurs were at all beholden to an action figure that was produced nigh unto 3 decades prior. But if there is precedent for it, and they do consider these figures to be part of the experience, and maybe if there are enough trademarks involved with those designs, you can imagine that maybe they were at least shown these figures, or maybe blueprints of the figures, or even just photos, and told that this is the particular aesthetic of dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, and therefore, even if you come up with a new design, you still have to technically fit it within those boundaries. The dinosaurs of Jurassic Park have to have a unifying visual aesthetic to them, which they do. And there you go. That is the best explanation I can think of as to why the baryonyx, as it appears in Fallen Kingdom, looks the way it does. But it also demonstrates, if that's true, that we are looking at the Jurassic Park dinosaurs as specifically Jurassic Park dinosaurs. But heck, we can even look to the T-Rex and the Raptors. I mean, they're the two big heavyweights in these movies. And their looks are very specific to those movies. The T-Rex, I mean, yes, there have been people that try to imitate the look of the T-Rex, like when it came to the shape of the head and stuff, but you can still tell when it is the proper Jurassic Park T-Rex because it has a very specific look to it. Same with the Raptors. Even if they are not scientifically accurate raptors, you know that they are Jurassic Park raptors. Or at the very least, you know when the look has been inspired by / stolen from Jurassic Park. It's the way they are in those movies. They are Jurassic Park dinosaurs. And you don't mess with those designs any more than you would mess with the designs of actual movie monsters, like the ones that surround me. The one time they tried was in Jurassic Park 3, when they tried to go a little bit more in the realm of scientific accuracy with the raptors by giving them feathers on top of their heads and doing those weird nose crest things. And there may have been actual science to back up those decisions, but nobody liked those designs. Everyone hated the Jurassic Park 3 raptors. Granted, everyone hated Jurassic Park 3 in general. It was a mess of a movie. But the Jurassic Park 3 designs, they messed with the raptors when they didn't need to. Nobody was asking for the raptors to be redesigned. Nobody wanted the raptors to be redesigned. The raptors really didn't need it. The raptors looked fine the way they were. Recolor them? Sure. I mean, there's nothing saying that they have to all be the same color, but messing with the way they actually look, with their profile, that iconic, sleek, streamlined appearance that debuted in 1993, that's like taking Godzilla and turning him into this. It doesn't work. People are not going to respond well to that. So when the look was restored in Jurassic World and we got that sleek-looking raptor again, sure, there were still people who thought we want to see it with feathers, but I have to assume they were a vocal minority because Jurassic World wound up doing gangbusters, and a lot of people really did enjoy it. I know, there are still some people who are pretty harsh towards the movie, and I will be responding to that soon enough, but I don't think many people were complaining about the way the dinosaurs looked just in terms of design, because they were the iconic designs. They were the Jurassic Park designs, and that's the point. The Jurassic Park dinosaurs are the Jurassic Park dinosaurs. It's not about whether or not they're scientifically accurate. It's not about whether they are getting with the times and incorporating new discoveries. It's about whether or not they look like they belong in Jurassic Park, the series. They are iconic designs of their own. Even if they weren't necessarily meant to be that way, it's what they became anyway. And they are now part of our public consciousness. You don't just change that. You don't just say, we're going to throw all of that out and do something completely different. Again, they tried. They tried just tweaking the designs a little, and people hated it. That's how important these designs are. And it's not because people are anti-science. It's because they are pro-Jurassic Park. You don't mess with something that isn't broken, even if messing with it is technically scientifically accurate. The thing is, it may be scientifically accurate, but it's not cinematic. The raptors as they appear in the movies are cinematic. They are iconic. They are an identifiable and irreplaceable part of the Jurassic series. And that's my ultimate point here. Don't look at the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park like they are real creatures that need to be treated as real creatures. Look at them as movie creatures, because that's what they are. That's what they've always been. For better or worse, that's just the fact, at least as far as I'm concerned. So I just wanted to get that out there, and now on to doing the actual scripted stuff. I think you'll be quite interested in what I have to say regarding Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. But I guess we'll see. So, anyway, I shared my thoughts. Whether you agree or disagree, I'm sure you have your own things to say, so comment down below and, well, we'll see what the consensus is. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.